Islam is different than Christianity in that respect. It's the opportunity to come back and say, here are the fundamentals. There's absolutely no reason to deviate from them, and then to sort of reboot something like ISIS. That is much more straightforward, and you could even argue inevitable with Islam, given the nature of the doctrine. With Christianity, it's harder because a lot of the pressure gets released with just the basic message of Jesus that he's not there to fulfill the law, right? I mean, there's a fundamental transcendence of all the barbarous stuff in the Old Testament, and what you're left with is you're left with a fair amount that you would rather not have, but it's not. I mean, even the craziest Christian cults are still just, at their worst, waiting around for the world to end. They're not actively bringing it about, and that's a difference that causes me to sleep better at night.
I love that. Yeah, I know that there's been some concern around that, because if you look back through history, anytime there's ever been some hard, rigid, you must stop doing this religiously, it just turns into a ton of bloodshed, But the reform that has happened, for example, with Christianity, has been very slow, and a lot of people died in the process. We obviously, like you said, Sam, we can't wait around for that. So what do we do? And I think maybe conversations like this, books like what you're doing, the obvious important work that you're doing with ex-Muslims of North America, that's why that is so important, I think, is because I think that's the way we get there, is through education and public discourse.
Yeah. And the point you made, which Majid makes as well, is that if you could just inject 1% of doubt in the mind of someone who would otherwise be a jihadist, that doubt is good, and however you can get it in there, whether it's through a project like yours or a reform project, if you're just left with the feeling that maybe this isn't the perfect path to paradise, that's enough when you're talking about canceling the worst behavior.
I guess I would only disagree to say that I don't think all forms of doubt are the same, in the sense of there's what Majid is sort of aiming towards, which is we just reinterpret things and we put enough doubt in one interpretation that, maybe all these interpretations can be valid, and the interpretation that says that when a man has a right to beat his wife, it actually means he should tickle his wife instead. I mean, if those are not...
Also a bad practice, but arguably not as bad.
Yeah, and Gad was talking about how some are saying that instead of saying, taking the words that say kill, and say, no, kill them with love or kill them with kindness. I think right. These are actual arguments people are making for this Reformation idea.
And I think it's absurd to expect people to take them all seriously, because there are times when the scripture is more explicit than other times. And with the verse that I was talking about, that a husband has a right to discipline his wife, it's really hard to get around that. At the very least, even if he doesn't have a right to hit her, he just has the right to hit her lightly with a stick. I mean, there's so many different ways that people try to, get themselves, into a more liberal position there. But the underlying idea is that a husband has a right to discipline his wife. Be it by scolding her, be it by walking away or whatever it is, he has the right to do that. That's the underlying idea, and that doesn't go away. And when I'm talking about, when I'm trying to advocate for women's rights or human rights, I don't want to start with that and try to mold that into something that is super feminist and
Yeah, there's no way to soften those words to come to a compromise. That just needs to be called out for what it is.
Right. So,
I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, so to the extent that we should have doubt in the truth of the claim altogether, in the truth of the message altogether. That's the doubt that's powerful. That's a doubt that can last.
Yeah, I think the fundamental claim that you want to undermine any way you can is this notion that revelation makes sense, the idea that certain books were dictated by an omniscient being. You have that is the foundation for all of these religions, and the moment you lose your purchase on that, then all the other dogmatisms that follow from that get weakened. So I think, and that unfortunately, as you know, in the Muslim world, that the certainty of the validity of that claim is I mean, then we're sort of back in the 14th century when you have to compare it to Christianity.